That's a really good question. Well, as I told you earlier, I used to be a performer myself. So I started my career as a trumpet player. And I played in an orchestra, a symphony orchestra in Florida for 17 full years. And so sitting in the orchestra, I knew what it was like to play music that was fun. And I also knew what it was like to sit there and go, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, count a lot of rests. So I try to write music where everybody gets something fun to play and where they're engaged the entire time. So it doesn't matter how old or how accomplished or anything the group is, whether it's this band that is all professionals or a middle school band. My goal is to write something that you guys all find fun and hopefully also makes you reach a little further than you might have already, like just music that pushes you a little bit. I mean, like even here, we were asking the saxophones to go ba, ba, da, you know, maybe go, what'd you say, beyond the line a little bit, take it over the line. So just stuff like that.
Speaking as someone who does a fair amount of creative writing in my free time and at school, one of the worst things for me is writer's block. How do you deal with that when you're composing?
Well, another good question. It kind of goes with the story I was just telling over here, is I allow myself to write bad music. Or I just sit down and compose, because if I start writing and I'm thinking, oh, this is awful. You know, if you start writing a story or something, you're like, this is terrible. Well, then you turn on a different part of your brain and it says, well, why is it terrible? You know, maybe I need to develop my characters a little bit more. Maybe it needs some funny stuff. Maybe it needs some sad stuff. So then you've turned yourself into a critic or an editor of sorts rather than a creator. And so then you say, well, that part's cool. Maybe I can work with that and make it funnier, or you know, you just start adjusting it. So writer's block does happen for me, but as soon as I get it, I just write bad music and then try to fix it. So I would just say, just write something. Force yourself to. That's the other thing, is that this is my job as a composer. So I wake up every day, just like you guys come to 7:20 a.m. rehearsals sometimes, right? 7:20?
Every morning.
Every morning? See, so I start composing. I drop my kids off at school and I start composing at 8:30 every morning, and I quit at dinner time, and that's my day. So I treat it as a job. So I have to do something every day because it's my job. Yes?
How do you approach writing music? Like, are you like, oh, that seems cool, I'll stick with this, or are you like, I have to do this, like,
I will sit at the, I do a couple different things. First of all, I'll sit at the piano. I took piano lessons for 5 years, so I'm not a great piano player, but I can put my fingers in various places. And I'll sit and I'll do this. If I don't like the chord, I'll move the fingers over a little bit. Still don't like it. That sounds like Copeland, can't use that. Oh, that sounds like Bernstein, can't use that. So I just keep moving my hands around until I find a chord that appeals to my ears, because I won't be happy with a piece unless it appeals to my ears. So I'll play until I find something, then I go, I've got that. And I just keep going from there. But on a more grand level, I mean, sometimes there's music that I just have to write, like you were saying. Do you remember last summer there was the events in Charleston where the guy walked into the church and killed a bunch of people? Did you hear about that last summer? I had to write a piece of music about that, so I did. That wasn't something where somebody said, hey, Jim, you want to write about that Charleston tragedy? I just like, as a composer, I got to do something. So that was almost instantaneous. I heard the music that, to me, you know, was my response to that tragedy. So sometimes it just comes and you got to do it. Other times I have to search for it on the piano.
Which style of writing, for example, slow, dramatic, or fast and light, makes it easiest for you to do that?
Wow.
Which makes every part of the band shine?
Can I answer like this? Composing is always a process, a learning experience, even at my age. I'm still learning every single new composition I do. I think now, at this point in my career, when I hear slow music, when the performers really get a chance to be personal and emotional with it, I'm going to start doing more of that. That's what speaks to me. That's what's starting to speak to me the most. When I hear performers on stage and they get to really use their voice and be musical. 10 years ago, I probably would have said I just love writing fast music because I had so much energy and I wanted to get it all in there. But I think now I'm starting to just like, I want to chill and I just wrote a set of 3 pieces for horn and piano, for example. And they're all slow because I wanted to give the soloist a chance to just make beautiful music so that they could show their personal voice. So.
How do you know when you're done writing a piece? Like, is there something that tells you, okay, this is where I want it, I can stop now?
Good question. Well, we just edited your part today, so I'm not even done with this one. I listen to everything I've written. When I'm in the process, I listen over and over again. So this piece these horn solos I just talked about, I finished the last part of that today. I probably listened to that movement like 20 times this morning. And I usually do it with my eyes closed, because if you watch it with the score, you'll trick yourself. The visual kind of tricks you. Oh, I wrote that. That's cool. It's got to be perfect. No, I close my eyes and I see if it just feels right. And if it feels right to me, hopefully it'll feel right to other people. So that's kind of how but there's always a little bit of editing that has to be done, like we just discovered. Thanks.
What are the kinds of genres you mainly write in, and what are all the genres you've ever written in, or do you just stick with one?
When you say genre, you mean instrument?
Genre music.
What's that?
Like jazz or...
Right, so I'm classical. I mean, I actually started as an arranger. Do you know what an arranger is? You do? You all know what an arranger is? Like if you heard a Taylor Swift song and you wanted an orchestra to play it, I keep saying Taylor Swift, I don't know why, but somebody has to take that Taylor Swift song that's written for a 5-piece band or whatever she is and make it playable by an orchestra. That's what an arranger would do. And I did a lot of that before I became a composer. So I've done Bruce Springsteen songs, I've done just a lot of rock and roll stuff, but I've never written a jazz band chart, like strictly just a jazz band. I hope to do that someday, but.
Have you written rock and roll?
No, I've never done an original rock and roll song. I'm still trying to master this classical stuff, you know. Can't go.
Pretty much got the hang of it.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I've never done a film score either. I hope someday to do a film score, because I think that'd be fun. But like I said, I'm just doing this right now. We'll see what happens.
Have you ever like given a piece to a band and been like salty?
Salty.
Satisfied with the result?
You mean with my music or with the performance?
With either of them?
Sure. Yeah. I usually blame myself though. Like if something doesn't go well, I think it's my fault. Maybe that's a childhood thing I need to work out, but I mean, it is the composer's job to try to make the piece as playable for the ensemble you're writing it for. So, but the answer is yes. But it's my fault.
What's like the full process to like composing a piece? Like you said, you start at the piano, and then like what do you do from there?
Please let me write good notes. No, well, actually, that's a really good question because, you know, you might think that a composer writes a melody and then writes the harmony underneath it and then divides the music amongst different instruments. I actually do it all at once. So there's no melody that I write that doesn't have the harmony at the same time. And I mentioned that word orchestrate, where I'm giving the music to all the instruments of the band. I do that all at once. So that's my process. It's kind of left to right. But if you were to look at any of my scores that I've ever written, the DNA of the music is constant throughout. Like everything is interwoven and has to do with each other all throughout the piece. There's nothing random in my music, in other words. It all ties in somehow. And that's the fun part about being a composer. You can kind of put little secrets in there and see if anybody ever discovers them. They discover a pizza man that is late for. It's true though. I mean, a lot of my music has little codes in it that if you study it, you'll discover, but otherwise I just hope you enjoy it. It's kind of the way I write.